The land of Velmoria had grown quiet over the years, but not with peace, rather with the silence of surrender. Ever since the Hollow King had torn open the skies and scorched the fields of Orlith, the realm had become a shadow of its former self. Crops withered in soil that whispered, and the people no longer sang. The Hollow King's dark legions roamed freely, draining life wherever they walked. All hope had died with the disappearance of Prince Elien, last seen atop the ruins of Stormhold, blade in hand, eyes defiant, as he vanished into the crimson light during the final stand. But legends, like embers, do not always fade into ash. In the wilderness beyond the charred valleys of Kedron, a lone warrior moved like a wind-carved stone, unmoving in purpose, yet shaped by pain. Kalian, once a knight of the Silver Order, bore the scars of the old war, one across his left eye and another buried deeper in the heart. He had been the last to see Elien alive. Others had turned to mourning, but Kalian turned to searching. He swore a silent vow by the blood-soaked banners of Stormhold. I will not rest until I find the prince or share his grave. Years passed. Mountains changed shape. But Kalian's resolve remained unbroken. Whispers from seers and mad prophets pointed him north, to the Murkspire, a land cursed even before the Hollow King's rise. Few returned from there. Those who did spoke of a shattered mirror of time, where lost things wandered endlessly, forgotten but not dead. The Murkspire was no longer of the world. Its skies were liquid, its rivers ran upward, and the trees bled light instead of sap. Kalian fought beasts that spoke his name before they struck, and shadows that mimicked his form. For 3 days and nights, he pressed deeper into the land's heart until he reached a stone gate wrapped in veins of obsidian. Upon it, the words were carved in a dead tongue. But Kalian remembered them from the old stories. Asterisk, what was taken may yet be returned, but not as it was. Asterisk. Within lay the shattered hall, a realm between life and death, ruled by echoes and memory. There, bound in chains of thought and fire, was Prince Elien. He looked older. His golden hair had grown wild, streaked with strands of silver. His once regal armor was broken and fused to his skin. But his eyes, those defiant, ember-lit eyes, were unmistakable. You came, Elien rasped, as if speaking burned him. I told you I'd find you, Kalian answered, placing his sword in the ground. Elien had been trapped in battle not of flesh, but of will, locked in eternal combat with the Hollow King's echo, a curse that repeated the final moments of their clash endlessly in this mirror world. But now, with Kalian by his side, the pattern could be broken. To free Elien, Kalian had to enter the memory battle itself, a living nightmare that bent reality into a loop. Over and over, the Hollow King, wearing a crown of flame and a face of ash, struck down Elien at the edge of Stormhold. And every time, Elien rose again, only to fall. But this time, Kalian entered the fray. You do not belong here, the Hollow King hissed, sword of shadows clashing with Kalian's light-forged blade. Neither do you, Kalian growled. Your time is over. Together, prince and warrior fought with a rhythm long forgotten. Elien moved like thunder, Kalian like steel drawn from the heart of the earth. At the final moment, as the Hollow King raised his obsidian blade, Elien struck with a cry that shook the mirror world apart. A crack split the sky, and light returned to the hall. When Kalian and Elien emerged from the Murkspire, the world itself seemed to gasp. The skies cleared for the first time in years. The fields trembled, as if the land remembered its rightful heir. And from the highest towers of the fallen capital, the ancient ravens returned, black-winged heralds of a line unbroken. The people of Velmoria, gaunt but not yet spiritless, gathered in silence when the news spread. Elien, still bearing the pain of his imprisonment, stood before the crowds not in golden robes, but in the battered armor of a warrior who had walked through death. Kalian stood at his side, his sword sheathed but his eyes vigilant. I was not lost, Elien declared, voice echoing through the ruined square. I was taken, and now I am returned, not as a prince of peace, but as a king of reckoning. Velmoria would not be rebuilt in a day. The Hollow King's legions still roamed, though their power had waned with their master's defeat. But where despair had once ruled, a spark had returned. Elien, crowned not in gold but in iron, rode across the kingdom with Kalian and a new guard of warriors, reclaiming town after town. Where the Hollow King's mark still burned, Elien's sword brought judgment. Where hope had crumbled, Kalian planted the banners anew. And in every tavern, every battlefield, and every whispered corner of the realm, the people spoke of two names: Elien the Enduring, and Kalian the Flame Seeker. The prince and the warrior who defied death itself. And this was only the beginning. From the Chronicles of Elien, Book of Iron. Though the Hollow King had been shattered in the Mirror Realm, his echo had not been the true source of his power. Deep beneath the earth, in the buried catacombs of the ancient capital Garlhane, the Black Crown stirred. Forged from the soul of the first betrayer and bound by the oaths of 7 cursed kings, the crown had waited centuries for a new vessel. It had chosen one. In the eastern wastes, where even the dead feared to tread, a warlord named Vareth the Hollowborn rose from obscurity. Once a loyal general of Velmoria, betrayed and left for dead during the last war, Vareth had found the Black Crown among the bones of the old emperors. He donned it and became something else. The Hollow King had returned. Not as a fading shadow, but reborn in flesh and wrath. Back in High Orlith, now reborn as the provisional seat of the realm, King Elien ruled from a throne carved not of gold but of reclaimed stone, simple, unyielding. Kalian was named Marshal of the Flame Guard, the elite brotherhood sworn to protect the king and lead his armies. The land was stirring. Forests once poisoned began to regrow. Springs, long turned to dust, bubbled again. The people were learning to sing. But war was coming. Elien knew the signs: the crows flying westward, the black mist curling on the horizon, the sudden silence of the winds. And then came the messengers, mutilated, eyeless, mouths filled with ash. "He is coming," they whispered before dying. "He wears your crown." Kalian knew the name. So did Elien. Vareth, the one who had fallen at Stormhold to protect the prince, or so they'd believe. The war could not be won by Velmoria alone. Elien dispatched envoys to the Therian Expanse, home to the Hawk Riders of the Sky Clans, and to the Frostvault Holds, where ancient dwarfkin still smithied in firelit silence. Even emissaries were sent to the Verdantari, forest dwellers who had once cursed Elien's bloodline. Some said no alliance could bind such ancient enemies. But Elien did not speak to them as a king. He spoke as a warrior who had bled. He showed them his scars. He spoke of Varetha's return. And most of all, he reminded them, "If Velmoria falls, you will not survive what comes next." And so the war hosts gathered. The Sky Clans sent their eagles and glaive. The Frostvaults marched with iron and thunder. Even the Verdantari sent their bone-marked druids, wielding spells older than stars. The last great war of the age had begun. Vareth had made his throne in Hollow Spire, a tower of obsidian rising from the dead heart of the world, surrounded by trenches that bled black flame. From there, he summoned legions of the lost, soldiers twisted by void, beasts made from the regrets of the slain, and stormwalkers bound to his will. The allied host came in waves. Elien led the vanguard himself, bearing the sword of Stormhold, reforged with a shard of the shattered Mirror Realm. Kalian rode at his right, his blade now burning with runes gifted by the Verdantari witches. The battle lasted 6 nights and 6 days. Rain fell sideways. Fire poured from the sky. Entire battalions were swallowed by living shadows. But Elien pressed on. On the 7th night, they breached Hollow Spire. In the throne chamber of Hollow Spire, lit by veins of red lightning, Elien found Vareth waiting, clad in the black crown, his body a twisted memory of the man he had once been. His face was both familiar and monstrous, part friend, part abomination. "You could have saved me," Vareth growled, voice like cracked stone. "You chose vengeance," Elien replied, stepping forward. "No," said Vareth. "I chose truth. This world must burn. They clashed. The tower shook. Walls collapsed. Lightning became blade, shadow became chain. Every strike Elien made was answered with tenfold rage. Kalian tried to intervene, but Elien held up a hand. "This is mine," he said. "I must end it." The duel raged until both were bleeding, breathless, broken. At last, Elien drove the sword of Stormhold into the ground, not into Varitha's heart, but into the black crown itself. The blade shattered, and with it, so did the crown. A scream like a dying god echoed through the realms as Varith collapsed, free at last. Elien knelt by his fallen enemy, his old friend. "I'm sorry," he whispered. With Varitha's fall, the hollow legions crumbled. The black flame vanished. The skies cleared. Velmoria was not the same. Too much had been lost. But something new was rising. Elien returned to Orlith not in triumph, but in truth. He passed laws to restore the Outlands, protect the wild peoples, and bind old enemies into one realm. He wore no crown, only the silver band of the Iron Pact. Kalian, offered the title of Lord Commander, refused. He vanished into the eastern reaches soon after the war, seeking peace, or perhaps another oath to keep. 100 years later, when the great scribes compiled the Book of Reckoning, they recorded a single quote beneath a mural of Elien and Kalian standing back to back atop the ruins of Hollowspire.